My name is Jason Bossert. I'm the president of Literacy Without Borders. I've been involved with Literacy Without Borders for 4 years now. Literacy Without Borders commenced its operation as a nonprofit literacy organization in 2012. And we've been primarily focusing on literacy in projects in Belize. The base of literacy there's a human element, I think, and then leads to an economic element. And the human element is confidence levels and empowerment of being able to read and write. In all countries, including Canada, we have a certain amount of illiteracy. And if you talk to people that are unable to understand basic, not even understand basic literacy, reading and writing, but again, it's the comprehension, and it's being able to advance to a higher level. You're stuck usually in a low economic class because you are restricted to jobs that don't require a lot of higher education. So it's very holds you back, and it does lead to again, problems stem from it. Usually that is what can contribute to or have people remain in poverty. When you have low self-esteem and low empowerment, it leads to other negative areas like crime. And again, in Belize, in any country, you look at the element of where the crime is stemming from, and a lot of times it's actually due to a problem with the people not being able to basic read and write and the comprehension to be able to do other things. So they get frustrated and they look for other ways. With youth, it's embarrassment of not being able to understand the basics. And you don't have long when they're young and in school to be able to work with them to keep them at a certain level so that they can continue to advance. And then it becomes very problematic from a peer perspective when they become teenagers. And then they start down, probably the wrong paths. And again, it's very limiting. So the base of all of that these days, and again, it's interesting because it's reading and writing is the base, always the base of the comprehension. But it is the ability to also have exposure now to digital. So in countries that we work with, in developing nations that don't have access to digital, a lot of them don't have access to proper resources for even reading and writing. Reading and writing is still the base, and then it's developing them as quickly as you can and exposing them to digital. Again, it's a limiter to not be able to read and write, but certainly to not have familiarity and comfort with digital. Strategies for literacy and working with them. The base is resources like learning materials and other tools and resources that the teachers use. Well, there's a need for literacy in any country, but it's especially important in developing nations. Belize has a high illiteracy level, especially amongst youth. They have a lot of the population that can use basic reading and writing. Their language is English, which is because they originally were a English colony, British Honduras. So they have high poverty, they have healthcare issues, they fall into that same category of developing nation. Why literacy in Belize, when you're dealing with countries that have high poverty and malnutrition and issues like this, and social issues like this, literacy is one of the components to help break the cycle of that poverty. The more literate and higher levels of comprehension, the better the opportunity for the nation, the people in the nation, to have better economic development. You can't have economic development without the basic skills of reading and writing, and now access to and understanding of digital technology, which is becoming more prevalent, certainly globally. Belize is one of the countries that has Canada is able to support. So for funding purposes and support purposes with nonprofits, there's been a lot more movement to working with Belize. From our perspective, the fact that it is a previous British colony, their instruction is in English, their curriculum is British based, and in the past history, Canada has had a lot of relationship and a lot of work with Belize in their curriculum. So a lot of the curriculum actually has a lot of similarities or elements of the Canadian curriculum as well. So it's the ease of our people to be able to work in Belize without needing to deal in different languages. So it's very accessible. It's a relatively safe country, although it has a very high crime rate. It's still a very, at this point, a relatively stable country, considering it still is a Central American country. It also has a smaller population, and a lot of that population are youth. Because of that, it seems to be a good area to have projects in, to look to try to make a systemic change with literacy and other social initiatives to help try to, again, break this cycle of poverty in that nation. For them to be able to develop any kind of future economically, it still stems from their ability to read and write, and not only just read and write by rote, but actual comprehension in literacy, and that's what will lead to economic development. Rhymes That Bind is directed preschool. It is a music and song based. What is developing in Belize is also the incorporation of culturally relevant stories and songs as well. The idea is to engage the parents. So as much as it is the development of the mind of the youth and getting the youth into learning and engaged, it's also to help encourage the parents to support the path of lifelong learning, and certainly youth education with their children, helping prepare their children to be able to enter at the right level at kindergarten, grade 1. But it's also to work with the parents. A lot of the parents are single parents. A lot of the parents themselves have low literacy. And we find that once there is a community group, because it is to attract the community parents and group, once there is that comfort, you end up with, you have the learning of the parents as well. Rather than embarrassed about not understanding, they can tend to learn some of that basic English themselves, words and sing lyrics to songs, stories. So you can also help work with some of that illiteracy, adult illiteracy issue as well. So it's really to set up the support and to start that development with the children, so when they get into primary school, they can excel, and certainly the parents can support it. But it's also about community, the community itself being comfortable to also do some learning themselves.